Thank you very much, Ronald, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share my experience. And so the topic today is harnessing the power of collaborative forestry investments. So I'll start by giving a brief overview of how I started out on this entrepreneurial journey, and then close by sharing my insights as to how you can start and then work together to make your forestry investments more profitable. So I'm going to give a brief of Amaya Wood and how we got here. So I started out in my journey with Synergy Properties. That's the real estate development arm, and that I added on another company called Synergy Foresters, and then finally Amaya Wood. So in the next slides, I'm going to explain this journey. So I started out trying to address the housing gap. I was like, how can people own their own homes? So just like you see many land developers today subdividing, getting land and subdividing it and selling unimproved land. That is how I started out. That's an example of one of the projects we have done where we do the road network. What we did different was things like provide our customers free house plans, and then provide them construction support when they're ready to start construction. I felt that was a way of helping customers, helping to provide value. And why the name Synergy? I believe from the start I had this spirit of collaboration. I was starting out as a much younger man, and I didn't really have that much capital. So what I did is I collaborated with people who had land. So luckily I had a background of being genuinely honest in business. So I'd find people who have land, and I was like, hey, how can we work together? We develop this land and we sell the land to people, give them favorable payment plans, give them house plans as well, and construction support, and help find a way of bridging the housing gap. What I believe I did different from many of the current land developers I see is from the start, and this is maybe like 15 years ago, I had this passion for nature and trees. So this is an example of one of our housing estate projects. I think you can get a sense of all the trees planted along the roads. This is what the key thing till today that differentiates Synergy Properties from other land developers who come in and just grade the land, sell the plots, and move on. And basically this is what happens. A typical land developer will get one of these bulldozers, they remove all the trees from the land, sell the plots. So for me, I felt I wasn't so happy about this because by recalling what I'd been taught in primary school, secondary school about the importance of trees, I wasn't so happy about that. So that's why I structured Synergy Properties that way. And then as I was building houses for people, I realized that, hey, we were using plenty of wood. This is an example of one of our model homes. So not model homes, a house where we were constructing a few years ago for a customer on one of the estates. Again, in the background, I don't know if you guys can notice the amount that trees infused in the estate. But yeah, so I started to see an opportunity because I was like, fine, I'm destroying trees while developing. I'm trying to replant, reforest these estates, but then also I noticed that my customers were using so much wood, and so I was like, hey, isn't there an opportunity here? I had this background in developing land, so I was like, what if I got much bigger land outside of Kampala, and then I subdivided the land into more affordable portions, because at the time my perspective of forestry was that it was for rich people. It was rich people who could bid to NFA, get those subleases and plant trees, or it was only rich people who could afford to have these big tracts of land to plant trees. So for me, I was like, how can I make, since we're using wood in the construction sector, that means it's an investment opportunity, how can I make it more affordable for people? And that's how our flagship project, Amaya, it's Amaya, not Amanya. Amaya is a niece of mine. So Amaya Forest was born in Nakasongo, and I'll go into those details. This is a picture taken about maybe 3 years ago of Amaya Forest. So again, using the spirit of collaboration, I didn't have that much capital. But again, given my background and background and reputation of being honest, I was able to partner with a person who owned a huge tract of land. And so I was like, let us partner. We subdivide this land, and then we help people who are interested in forestry. We help them plant and maintain trees. So luckily, I was able to convince the owner, and that's how I started. Now, this picture shows trees at different growth stages. The reason why the pictures on the trees on the right are shorter than the ones on the left is because when I started out, I was using a model where, again, my customers would buy the land first, and then when they were ready, they would have either Synergy Foresters, the company had created to support them in forestry, help them plant and maintain, or even get other contractors to help them. But people were doing it at different stages. So buy the land, and then when they were ready, we would help them plant trees. We started off with pine because it had been proven it was suited for the geographical area. But then lately we have added on other species of trees. So this is the office at Amaya Forest. And the whole idea of this framework, again, how it ties into collaboration. When I did the mathematics, I'm privileged to have a background in accounting. I did the math and I felt like a person working alone to undertake forestry would be too expensive because there's costs like you have to hire a forester, then coordinating the labor. Most of forestry land is out of town, so the amount of money you spend to supervise, having to drive there, the fuel cost, for example, of driving to this particular site in Nakasongola and coming back is about 200,000. So assuming you're a person who has land there, or let's say you have land in Kabale, then how much money would you spend just the transport costs alone going there? How do you get where do you house staff members when you get them? Then where do you get a forester from? So my model was like, let me set up all this infrastructure, get a very big piece of land, subdivide it, and then be able to share these costs among many people. And that's how I've been able to keep the costs more affordable for my customers. Because, for example, this site house or the forester that stays there, all the other supporting infrastructure, I'm able to share that cost among so many people. And so people really bought into this concept. So far, we've opened up 2 square miles of land. Each square mile is about 640 acres. So that can give you a sense of the scale. We're undertaking, we want to develop another 2 square miles of land around that same site. As privileged, whereby this particular person has partnered with has had that much land in Nakasongola. And so you too can look out for such opportunities where, if you have a good reputation and you're honest, you can present this to people who have land and tell them, hey, you know what, let us work together to do something like this. This is a picture of eucalyptus trees, which are growing favorably there on the plantation. I find it really beautiful, to be honest. I'm there most like weekends as much as possible. But yeah, it's interesting watching these trees develop. So this is a picture of a wood shop we put on the main road. Luckily, the land side on the main road. But then when for all of you in agriculture, there's one aspect of being able to raise the crop, but then you don't get as much value if you sell your product farm gate. So many people I'm sure many of you have tried or are doing forestry, but the reality is if you sell your trees at the farm, then you don't get as much value because you have an aspect of the middleman. So one of the things that I've had to create is Amaya Wood. And my ambition was, how do I directly reach the market? Because now, as the years have gone by, we've reached a point where some customers' trees are ready for thinning. So we're able to produce firewood, we're able to produce construction poles. And so as I'm developing this process and trying to harness the value for my customers, I realized early on that I have to remove the middleman and be able to join to face the market directly. So how this place is set up is the land is, this shop we have sizable land, it sits on 5 acres. So the whole idea is, let's say if a customer's trees are ready for thinning, or if, we can We get their wood, and then we're able to put it at the shop and then clearly mark that, hey, you know what, this is wood that has gone, that has come from this customer. And then on my side, I've been working on a marketing engine, reaching out to different partners who are picked up over time in construction and telling them of the concept. The concept being, this is, you know, in how restaurants, some restaurants that sell organic food, say farm to table. I too am still trying to come up with a tagline of from forest maybe to the site. I'm going to, you know, ask friends in the marketing industry to help me. But the whole idea is I've been pitching construction companies successfully, actually, that when you buy from Amaya Wood, you're helping to give the farmer who planted these trees more value for their product. Now, where collaboration again comes in, because now this is the shop, for example, that's facilitating many people, but where collaboration comes in is I noticed that we're spending a lot of money on transport. So the advantage I've had by working with a group of people is we're like, hey, you know what if we raised a fund together and you know and bought a truck together, and when that process, people have already begun subscribing, and God willing, in about 1 or 2 months, we're going to be able to buy our own wood truck. Because the other thing is, when you produce a product, beyond having access to direct market, you also need to be able to facilitate its transport, you know. So again, imagine you are a single person, you have your own plantation. How would you be able to underwrite all those costs, you know, the transport costs and all the other related things? So I'll move into this the collaboration perspective, and I'm going to, you know, spend some time here. So again, you might ask yourself, okay, I'm an individual. How would I be able to collaborate with a big group of people to gain value? The first thing I recommend is, and some of you, I'm sure in the audience, probably have smaller plots of land, and so you're like, hey, you know what? How do I enter this? Is it worth it for me to enter this chain? And I say yes. Even if you have that 50 by 100 piece of land or 100 by 100, plant trees on it. I mean, think about the economics. A seedling might cost you about, let's say 600 shillings. You might spend money and effort those initial years developing that seedling, but then it helps create more value on your land instead of letting the land just sit there, because eventually you'll be able to harness value from that tree as it grows, because the value will go up. If you have a plot of land, even it's 50 by 100, and you planted trees on it, when at some point you want to sell, whoever is coming to buy will probably pay you more value because your land has trees. If you choose to construct a home down the road, again, you can cut the wood that you planted and use that wood to develop your site. Another important thing is we have an issue of land grabbing in Uganda, of squatters, whereby if you leave your land idle and there's no activity on it, then you put yourself at that risk. Sorry. So again, planting trees on your plot ends up being key. So back to this point of collaboration, I strongly recommend anyone who's embarking on this journey to join Uganda Timber Growers Association, UTGA. They're located in Kamocha. And this is the spirit of collaboration, collaborating not just with them as a secretariat, but then also they expose you to other farmers who have more experience. So UTGA has information about, I guess, for the members who have joined, and I believe there are many members in it. We have clusters. For example, now for me, I'm located in Nakasongola. So they have information as to all the farmers in Nakasongola. So let's say you have your plantation is in Kavale. If you join UTGA, they'll be able to expose you to the farmers there. And then that way you're able to link up with those farmers, and all of you have a similar goal, and you're able to build relationships. They hold meetings sometimes, and you get to meet other people. When you meet those farmers, you'll be able to find out where they buy their seedlings from. Maybe some of them might be bigger than you and have a forester. So then you can be able to take advantage of their forester coming to your site at a cheaper cost than bringing, let's say, one from further away. And then when it comes to this perspective of getting at point of pooling resources, even if you guys are not big enough to, let's say, you're pulling resources to buy equip the sawmills or the trucks together, but if you find providers, for example, who have that machinery, and you're coming together as a team of people who are in that cluster, you're able to negotiate better prices. One of the challenges in forestry beyond the fire risks is was a challenge of balado, encroaching on the trees, and this can be quite drastic. Cows and goats. Again, if you're under a cluster, then you have a bigger negotiation power to the local area authorities, the LC1. You can reach out to the LC3 and the RDC to take tougher measures when they catch the balado or people rearing goats in plantations. If you go there yourself, let's say to the RDC or LC1, fine, maybe they can help. But if you're a cluster, if you're a group of people working together, you have a strong bargaining power. UTGA will also network you with good contractors, because over time they get feedback from farmers, and so they know the contractors who are shady. They know the good contractors. So again, if you collaborate with them, they can be able to advise. UTGA is where most people, in fact, for example, when it comes to pine, they're ones that typically import the pine seeds at good prices from abroad. Most of the seeds come from Australia or Brazil, and they sell them to the nurseries. So again, because they know which nurseries have bought the genuine seeds of pine from them, they're able to advise and point you to where you can get those genuine seedlings. When it comes to other species like eucalyptus, or other native species you might choose to plant, again, UTGA is a very good resource for that, because they know that genuine people based on the feedback from the other people. So please, when you're starting out on this journey, however small your plantation might be, or your garden might be for trees, please network with UTGA for that support. The other collaboration aspect is National Forestry Authority. So NFA has centers all over Uganda. Mine, I have I think 2 centers in Nakasongola, and the benefit of that is you'll find people there at those centers who are very passionate about trees. You can ask them any questions, any technical questions. They tend to have contractors they're working with as well, so they can share those. They can provide you for forestry support in case your plantation has challenges. So in forestry, think about forestry as agriculture. So let's say you have you want to plant tomatoes somewhere, and you want to hire a tractor. So if you go to a person who has a tractor for hire, again, if let's say your land is bigger, or let's say you're more farmers, you're able to negotiate that rate for that tractor. You're able to negotiate all kinds of inputs if you're a group of people. So again, that's where collaboration, economies of scale comes in. So again, you might ask yourself as a single person, how do I build this scale? And one, it can be through networking with, basically, how do you network with other farmers? This throws you back to UTGA. UTGA knows other farmers. It's quite key, basically, when you're doing these things, not to do it by yourself. And then collaboration is pooling of capital. I'm sure people have seen this through circles and investment clubs. If you join hands with people and collaborate with them in investments, then you're able to do much bigger things. I gave an example of the trucks, the equipment that we're about to purchase. I'll close with this. One of the issues we face in forestry is right now the end product, the price is not really optimized. I know if you guys probably know the price of Chirundu, if you go and buying 4x2 wood, or I think that some measurements are 6x2. So the reality is that the price is not so optimized for the farmer. So again, a person will ask themselves, why forestry? So one, obviously, it helps preserve your land. The trees will grow in value as your land also grows in value. But one of the things I've seen through my travels, looking at in Kenya, in the US, looking at where we are disadvantaged and why our price of wood is still low, is the reality is we're not processing it. So by processing, I mean something called kiln drying it. There's some machines called kilns that dry the wood. So if you have good quality wood that you've cut from your plantation and you dry it, you're able then to reach out to global markets. And the global markets are able to offer higher prices than the local market in Uganda. I mean, think about some of you have probably traveled to the Middle East, to countries like Dubai, Saudi Arabia. Those countries don't have any trees. So they source wood globally and they pay a premium for it. The reason why the farmer in Uganda, few farmers are still getting low prices, is we are serving just the local market. And then because Uganda has quite a number of farmers, that's how the price is depressed. So one of the things which I'm working on, and we're being supported by, again, UTGA is introducing us to different partners. They're really drilling the collaboration in us, because they're like, hey, you know what? Collaborate with people and then pull capital and buy kilns. You can invest in companies that operate these kilns. So with the kilns, you'll be able to dry your wood and be able to fetch higher prices. Can you do this by yourself? It would be very difficult because it's expensive. But if, let's say, a cluster of farmers in, let's say, in Chivale or Nakasongola came together, then they would be able to buy that machinery and be supported. And then they'd be able to not only dry their own wood, but they could operate as a commercial venture and dry other farmers' wood, and then be able to access the export market. And then also, when you have dried wood, when you have dried pine and dried eucalyptus, which are some of the common species people plant, then you can actually use them to make furniture, But again, why our carpenters here, or even the market, why we tend to want to buy mahogany or Mugavo wood or whatever, is we don't have good quality furniture being made out of, let's say, eucalyptus. Now, I've been to exhibitions in Kenya where I've found very, very good, the companies there making very good furniture out of eucalyptus. How are they able to do so? Because their wood is dried. So it's quite possible. But how do you operate such, how do you get to that point? It's by pulling capital, it's through collaboration. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share for now. I want to be able to leave enough time for questions. Thank you very much. Over to you, Ronnie.
Great, thank you so much, Jaffar, for that lovely presentation. Quite a bit to deal with, quite a bit to learn. And I mean, for me, the number 2 square miles is still ringing in my mind, and another 2 being prepared. That's just exciting progress. And thank you so much for the work you're doing in that area. Friends, we have an opportunity now to ask Jaffar a couple of questions. Please go ahead. You could put up your hand, or you could put your question in the chat box. I guess as you simply put up your hand and put your question in the chat box, I'll give you a chance to ask the question. Jaffar, for me, I think one of the things which is ringing in my mind is how many people do you bring together for a project of 2 square miles? If people are taking 5 acres, people are taking 10 acres. So how many people are you bringing together? And I guess for me, I wanted you to first address, how do you keep them together? What if I come, I get the 5 acres of forest, and then I decide that it would be a nice thing to build a village home in the middle of the forest? How do you make sure that you align the vision of the people who join the project to be able to keep it going? Let me see if I have another question here. So that's the first one from me. Margaret is asking, please confirm the types of trees you grow. I think in the project, that's what Margaret wants to know. You could be able to confirm that. I guess possibly a second question, which I wanted you to touch on as we get into the Q&A. I see Bossa here says, what's the cost of planting 1 acre of eucalyptus? Which type grows fastest? And I think this cost may change, Jaffar, depending on whether you are doing it in a project like yours, or I'm doing it on my 2 acres in the village. And possibly you could also debate why it is helpful for people to do this corporately. What are the advantages in that? You could touch on Bossa's question. Jaffar, I'll let you answer those few, and then we'll have another round to discuss.
Thank you. So we have been able to develop the client list. So it's quite big. I mean, I have it's over probably over 200 people who are part of this, and And for them, for a number of customers, I mean, they have different reasons why they invested. Some of them were like, let us buy land, genuine land, with titled, and land appreciates. So for them, it's more of land banking. But then the question ends up being, do you buy a small plot of 50 by 100, let's say in Kampala, and then just leave it there? Yes, that plot will also develop, but then what if you use that same amount of money to buy much bigger land further out and just have a longer term perspective? And then with bigger land, you have more. When we started out, I remember we were selling 5 acres of land at 12 million. And now I know land about the same size that area is going for about 25, 27 million. So the land has appreciated. And then how I keep people to stick to the vision is, for me, I'm actually encouraging it. I'm encouraging people to build their village homes within the trees. I have done the same thing. Because the whole idea is, for me, I guess my bias also, I have a double bias of being a real estate developer. So I'm trying to develop some kind of like of a city, an organized city, which is green. Some of you have been to places like Connecticut in the US, where people have homes and, and they're right in the middle of the trees. Now, when I started out, I had an issue of speculators who are just buying the land to resell. So under the new model, we sell the land as a combo. We sell land and trees planted on it, That way, at least that's a good starting point where everyone has a similar vision of tree planting beyond the land versus just speculators. And how I keep people together is, so fine, obviously, sometimes it helps having a vision bearer, but then I carefully say that way people are independent of me. One, they own the land. Two, fine, I have a company that helps them manage the trees, but some of them already have other contractors, and I actually encourage it. So if anything happened to me, I mean, a person owns their land, they can use other tree contractors. They're also part of, of the network. So, it's quite important in business to build a business that's sustainable that way, whereby things are not so dependent on one person. Second question, types of trees grown. So far, we've done pine, we've done eucalyptus. I'm also right now I'm piloting has avocado. How I'm able to do that is because I did a water dam, so I have a water source that I'm able to irrigate. So yeah, that's what we've tried to do so far. We do, from that environmental perspective, we do leave some pockets of land untouched, so I try not to sell every single piece of land. I'll leave some which is untouched for the natural ecology, because when you have a piece of land and you clear it, let's say, and you plant pine or eucalyptus, you might find some animals which are better suited to the native environment, so you have to provide for that when you're doing forestry. Then three, but yeah, any tree can grow there. You can grow mangoes, you can grow, anything really, as long as you're able to irrigate. Then three is the cost of eucalyptus. And again, you hinted on that. My costs might be definitely much lower than a person trying to do it on a smaller scale. But I mean, if you think about just you have to ask yourself, okay, what's the cost of the seedling? What's the cost of the transportation? Those are things you can just, add up yourself together. How many seedlings you plant per acre? That's a bit, I know that stuff, but it's a bit technical. It's not something I'd want to address here. Maybe people can reach out to me privately and I can share with them some of those figures on the costs of, of planting these different trees. I guess at my level of scale, that costing might be different for a smaller scale. Over to you, Ronnie.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jaffar. There are a couple of other questions in the chat box. Let me just go through them. Kennedy Kalunji asks, what's the average cost of maintaining the forest over its life? And then I think he also touches on collaborations fail as people expect quick returns. I think you touched on this, a couple of speculators come in. How do you ensure that people see the big picture and to be able to wait out the project? Cisse is asking, is your project still expanding? Is it open to join now, and at what cost? So if I want to participate in the 2 square miles which are being opened, how can I be able to participate? Sean says, what technologies do you use to manage these large forests from wildfires, pests, and termites? Yeah, I think on the termites, once I attempted to with a couple of partners, we planted some eucalyptus, and then the termites even grew fat. They were very healthy after seeing how they had eaten all our eucalyptus. But anyway, Jaffar, you will help us address that. Then Jimmy says, beyond advocating primary processing, what else needs to be done to improve farm gate prices? Especially since the next 4 to 5 years, most UTGA plantations will be ready for harvest, and they will be too much supply in an already depressed market. I think Jimmy is asking, especially in that direction, beyond the primary processing, are there any other quick wins? And I think he raises a good point that within the next 4 or 5 years, the supply may even increase. So I think Margaret asks a question similar to the one which was asked earlier. What's the minimum investment to join the collaboration? I think you'll talk to that, Jaffar, when you get a chance. Let me just ask Matthias to unmute and ask his question. Matthias, please go ahead and unmute.
Thank you very much, Ronnie. I have a question, and the question goes directly to Jaffar. I have tried planting eucalyptus at first, and particularly I looked at GU7 and GU8. These I planted in 2020. Definitely some didn't do well, some did well. I factored in things like termites and whatever. I tried treating, I tried killing a few ant hills, but definitely didn't work out. So I switched to pine, and as well, pine didn't work out. So I am inquiring from him as an expert or someone who has tried out the business, what could have brought meat fail out of the project.
Matthias, where are you planting this forest?
The forest is in Kamuli. And
Kamuli, okay.
When I went to NFA, they advised me to plant GUs instead of GC.
All right.
Okay. So Ronnie,
and I think possibly, Jaffar, as you address that question, you can broadly speak to most of us who have put our finger into forestry and the trees haven't performed as they promised they would. So what are the common mistakes which we make on that journey?
Okay, I think I mean, I'm going to try my best, to address all these questions. One of the things I did when I started out is consult. So I too have made mistakes along the way, and you become better. Like in any business venture. I mean, this is enterprise. I attend your sessions, and one of the things you've done a good job at is educate us. So an important thing is education. So when I started out, I consulted. I remember going and seeing, and people tend to be quite helpful. I appreciate the advice I got from the CEO at the time of a bigger company called New Forest Company. I remember I went to his office and he told me, Jaffar, you know what, let us sit down and I tell you some of the mistakes I've made so that you don't repeat them. So one is, in terms of mistakes, is I'll ask you guys, did you have good support? So I strongly recommend you join UTGA. Because now it's a collection of knowledge of the mistakes and challenges farmers have faced, and they will advise you. It has very passionate people at the secretariat. So one of the things, for example, with termites is the chemical that's used. I use, and that's something I can share. I mean, if you share my contacts with people, I can share some of the places where I get good materials. I get, but just quickly, is the company called AgriFarm, a good friend of mine called Agnes, and she has a very, I think it's called Galil, a good material for termiticide for termites, which is a common problem. The other items, I forget the name, but were not as effective. So again, like through such networking with UTGA and in different groups, you can be able to find inputs that work. If you go to the bigger companies, New Forest Company, I mean, companies which you see, which you know have been successful, talk to their foresters, and they will share the technologies and the chemicals they're using. The other reason why plantations tend to fail is supervision. Is again, if you're living in Kampala and your plantation is Kamoli, honestly, like to what extent can you adequately supervise? Now, one of the advantages that I have at Amaya Forest is the economies of scale, collaboration, having a resident management structure where my customers benefit because there are people whose job is day-to-day to look after their plantations without them having to go there themselves. As a result, they have better input. It's kind of like, let's say, it's agriculture. If you're growing anything, I've burnt my hands trying different things, for example, where I'm doing goats somewhere, but I'm hardly ever there, then what are the chances those goats are going to be healthy? So Amaya, that spirit of collaboration does that, is all these farmers, they don't really have to go there day to day. They only come, at will because it's their land. Or we even have some active open days. We have one coming up on June 9th, I believe. So if you guys reach out to me, I can give you those details and you can come and visit us. But it comes back to supervision. As a manager in any business, are you really supervising your plantation? It's failing, but how much time did you invest in it? How much research did you invest in it? So I hope broadly that helps. Now, the question of so much wood is going to come onto the market and to be overflooded. For me, personally, I don't believe that's true. I am always seeing new buildings coming up in Kampala. We all know about our population growth rate, and that increased during COVID. Uganda has some of the highest population growth rates in the world. So as long as we have a good, stable governance, that's quite key. As long as we don't end up becoming like a Sudan, you should see more economic development, and with that will come a higher demand for wood. The only challenge is the price. Agricultural products, if you grow your tomatoes and you don't process at all, you're going to fetch a low price. So as a tree farmer as well, how you get a higher price is how can you directly hit the market. So most of us tend to be passive in nature, whereby we want to do something and just get and what happens, brokers come and assess your wood, your plantation, and they'll tell you a fixed price. Now, if you sell, let's say, your trees, the broker is going to come and tell you, oh, me, I want to give you, let's say, X amount of money per tree. But remember, in your plantation, there's some trees which have developed better than others, but they're giving you probably a uniform price. So if you take that approach, then you won't get that much value. But if you partnered with people, or let's say you reached out to, let's say, Bivandas yourself, these wood shops that sell the wood. And then if you're able to, again, partner with other people in your cluster, please join UTGA and they'll tell you the other farmers in your area. So if you join other farmers and all of you meet and you're like, hey, you know what? How can we negotiate better, let's say, transport costs from people who are going to transport for us? How can we maybe in that cluster, in that area, can we set up a wood shop together, a wood lot, maybe rent a place somewhere if you have sizable plantations to be able to reach the market directly? Are there any projects? For example, now for me, I have an advantage in Nakasongola, having built relationships there. I'm able to identify, let's say, the projects which are coming up. And because of my relationships, I'm like, hey, you know what? Can we supply, let's say, your building that's coming up with wood? Can we, if there's a school there and I'm a resident of Nakasongola, I have first priority to do things like provide the firewood to that school. So again, do you take a passive approach or do you take an active approach to reach the market by cutting out the middleman? That is how you get higher prices. But if you sell your tomato in the garden or your cabbage in the garden, it's an agricultural product. You won't get much value. Now, one of the things I've seen, again, given my background in finance and entrepreneurship, with what the farmers did is farmers got this chance to lease NFL land. And then they also got, at the time, I think there were grants from FAO, so their costs of input were subsidized. But then all the time as the wood has been growing, they did not think about the marketing side. Now, again, as advantage given my background, where I've started early, just 7 years in, is to think about the market side, is because of my of knowing that, hey, you know what, when you produce something, you have to think about the market. So to what extent can the farmers create brands, to be able to sell their product on the market? One of the things UTGA has done is they've created a wood shop in I think I believe it's Mitiana, whatever. They're trying to address that thing of, okay, you know what, how can we help our farmers be able to bring their produce and place it right there at the wood shop. But then beyond relying on that, as a farmer, you have to think about and say, hey, you know what can I do about this? Now, ideally, what all these tree farmers need to do, because we've been exposed through, again, through UTGA, and we've had groups take us and show us what's happening in Kenya. People have gone to South Africa. It comes down to what I mentioned before of the kiln drying. We need to dry our wood. So once we dry our wood, then we can make furniture out of it. Then we can be able to export it. But the truth is we tend to be passive. I think that's how we end up, instead of doing more industry and technology, we end up, anyone who gets money in Uganda sets up a shopping mall or does real estate. So we are passive business people. So if we put our money together, if the farmers put their money together and set up these kilns in clusters, if Nakasongola has a dryer, maybe Luero farmers have a dryer. These dryers start, let's say, at about, we're told about $100,000, which is about 370 million. But if people came together, they can come up with that money and start to operate it and operate profitably. And then once you have dried wood, like I mentioned, you can make better furniture. You can make furniture out of eucalyptus. You know, you can make tables. I've seen this with my own eyes. And then you can supply the foreign markets. So to what extent can all these farmers who have grown these trees take a more active approach instead of sitting back and being that farmer who's selling their cabbage in the garden and expecting better returns? For Sisi was asking about the prices. Where we sell each 5 acres of land at 35 million Uganda shillings, and that includes trees which have been grown for a period of about 6 months. And then after that, a person has an option of either retaining Synergy Foresters as the forest contractor or getting their own contractor or getting their own bachuba to come and maintain. That's the current pricing point. I mentioned I talked about the issue about termites. Then, Ron, is there anything else I've skipped? I think I've answered everything.
Yeah, I think we are there. There are a couple more questions which have come through. Mary is asking, where can one buy quality seedlings for eucalyptus? I think you talked about it, but you could reiterate that. Godwin is saying, thank you for the presentation. Please do share your contact details. I think you mentioned that there is an open day on 9th June. That's closed, and some people may be interested in participating. So you could just share that, a link or the contacts in the chat box. Mary is also asking for the contacts. Yes, I think Jaffar is going to do that. Birunji is saying, they say pine and eucalyptus fill the soil. Nothing can ever grow on it again. So what are the remedies? I think I've had this, Jaffar, you could comfort us, say that if you plant this, that's it. So that's the question which Birunji is asking. Harriet is asking, Harriet is just saying thank you for your vision, and thank you for the great work which you're doing. That's from Harriet. Thank you, Harriet. Jaffar, thank you for the presentation. That's Elizabeth. Christine is saying, how is it to reclaim my land for other purposes after it's been planted, after the forest is after you have planted the forest trees? I think this points to the usage of the land. I think you talked about the fact that the person buys the land, they own it, but you could possibly touch on that again. James Babumba says, will you comment on pine versus eucalyptus trees? I think he's asking for the economics between the two. I know that they grow in some places and don't grow in others, but you could also touch on possibly a high-level profitability analysis between the two. Yes, Christine Nakazi is asking, do you recommend integration with other agro enterprises, say goats, as you grow the tree? So can I have some animals in the forest as the forest grows? What kind of integration what kind of integration can we do? Matthias is asking about UTGA. You have mentioned, yes, UTGA quite a bit. how can we join and what are the requirements? I think, do we go to a site, do we have a form which we fill? We'll possibly touch on those right now, and then I'll capture the others after you have answered those.
All right, thank you. So where do we get quality eucalyptus seedlings from? There are certified nurseries in Uganda. Again, you can get that list from UTGA. It's quite important that you do not buy seedlings from an uncertified nursery, because I mean you're spending all this money clearing the land and planting the trees. So if you don't have good seedlings, that's not a good thing. So I strongly recommend that you get that list of certified contractors from one source is UTGA, and the other one is, I think, FAO. FAO is a UN body that's helping to support the forestry in Uganda. They have, I think, in fact, they're the ones who certify those nurseries. A quick comment though about eucalyptus seedlings is that the reality is, because of our gap in entrepreneurship in Uganda, what's happening in all these seedlings, these nurseries of eucalyptus, is we're doing clones where people do a mother garden and then clone those seedlings and plant them. But that's not ideal, because the species are too similar to each other. So in case of any outbreak of a disease, we can be catastrophic. Now, what ideally we should be the same way we do it. We do it for pine, where we import seedlings from certified seeds producers in some of these developed countries. Same thing should be for eucalyptus. We should be using seeds, but in Uganda, as per now, is using clones, and maybe that could be an opportunity for you to invest in, of importing seeds and doing it that way. The reason why we don't do it in Uganda, it takes more time to develop the seedling from seeds. It's being done in Kenya right now. It's just a new venture of some Israelis who have set up a greenhouse. So that's a business opportunity for you guys to look into. I would say most of in fact, if not all of our nurseries in Uganda are simply doing clones, which is not ideal. So we need to migrate over to seeds being used for eucalyptus. Contact details, I've provided that in the chat box. Those who are interested can reach out to me. I give you details of the open day. What our company usually does with open days is we reach out to our plantation owners to make it more convenient for them to come and visit the plantation. So again, by pooling, by collaborating. So they collaborate, it's a cheaper cost for them, and we share the cost of the buses or whatever that we use to come and visit. So it's something where you could also come and join us and visit. If you reach out to me, I'll give you those details. So pine and eucalyptus spoiling soil. This is a debate which has been happening. So honestly, from my side, I don't have lived experience of that. What I know is when I plant pine, or when these trees grow and they canopy, then the undergrowth has less light, So you start to see the weeds somehow being phased out. So I don't know if maybe that could be part of the aspect of them not having enough sunlight. Some people have argued that they take up all the fertility, which is expected. I mean, if you have a tree growing, obviously the whole time it's going to be sucking out the nutrients. So maybe one way people could think about it is soil is go back to your primary school biology. Soil is a medium. So let's say if you cut the trees and you want the land to refertilize, then what do? You let the land rest, right? Then maybe you could add fertilizer. And then you're able to re-nourish your soil. The same way, it's if you plant maize over and over again in a place, the resources get depleted and you have to either, it's called try another crop, a nitrogen fixing crop or whatever. So that's something which I could think of using my primary school biology. But I'm a businessman, I'm not an expert, I'm not a biologist. At that level, soil biologist, that's something that can be researched on more. Can the land be reclaimed for other purposes? The model I did was my customers own their land. It is Milo land. So they can use it for other purposes. And indeed, in my perspective, it's my hope, actually. It's my hope that Nakasongola becomes the capital city, as we've always been told. I'm always encouraging. In fact, now I have a number of customers who want to start building their homes there. We now have tourists. I don't know if you guys have seen our signpost on that Gulu Highway. It says Amaya Forest. We now have tourists coming in and riding their bikes, driving through, enjoying the trees. I have some customers who want to do ecotourism within their trees. So actually for me, I want the land to be repurposed. I want my customers to use it for other things. That way the land value can grow. And so for me, if the land value grows and my customers are getting more money, that's my success. So they make more money while helping the environment at the same time, because while these trees are growing, they're doing something called carbon sequestration, where they're absorbing all this carbon dioxide from the environment. So that's it ends up being like a dual approach, in terms of a person is making money while at the same time helping the environment. That is my ambition. The economics of pine and versus eucalyptus. So what I've seen is that pine takes longer to canopy because it grows slower. So while eucalyptus will grow much faster and then be able to suppress the weeds much faster. So with pine, you have to spend more years with doing weed control than eucalyptus. And then what I'm seeing is so pine ends up being more expensive to establish in that sense. Eucalyptus, you do have to do termite control, which you don't have to do with pine. Pine has a disadvantage of being more fire prone than eucalyptus. So all those things are pros and cons. Now, if you look at the also in terms of the revenue points, you're able to make some money faster with eucalyptus because it grows much faster. So you thin it faster, and from that wood you can sell for small poles or for firewood or whatever. While with pine, for you to harness value, you have to wait it out on the longer front. Now, at the market, when you go to the market, yes, indeed, the pine will fetch slightly a higher price for a piece of wood. I don't have the figures here, but if you look at, let's say, Olubaola 4x2 for pine versus eucalyptus, pine will be slightly higher. In my opinion, that doesn't justify the longer waiting time you've done. So it's just, but then the question also you have to bring up is, because now eucalyptus is growing much faster, that's what everyone is planting. So pine now has ended up being a more scarce resource. The whole thing of supply versus demand. So when you, as an investor, you project it and say, oh, okay, you know what? Every single farmer nowadays is planting eucalyptus. Less people are planting pine. What will happen? The prices in the long run. So a solution is something called portfolio theory of diversification. If I was a farmer, I'd balance it out, I'd say, let me plant pine for a longer time period, a longer perspective, and then mix it up with a section of it of eucalyptus as well. Because I suspect that with the flood of everyone planting eucalyptus, down the road, you're looking at maybe 15 years down the road, you'll see that maybe the prices of eucalyptus will drop much lower than pine will, because less people are planting pine. So I say do both of them. Can you do goats or animals? I mean, initially, when you plant when the trees are still young, you don't want to have any animals because, in fact, the goats are more dangerous. A goat can just wipe out your plantation really, really quick. They just go and eating the tops. They eat the tops of pine as well. They like that smell very much. So don't do that while your trees are still young. But as the trees grow, for example, at Amaya Forest right now, it's quite feasible for a person now to integrate and be able to keep animals on their land. For us, we have a policy, though, we discourage the Avarado from grazing in our land, and even us, we don't, because our customers are at different stages. So some customers, their trees have grown, they're at 7 years, 6 years, but then I still have some customers whose trees were just planted, So our basic framework is to not allow any animals in the plantation at all. And then let's say I believe I've answered everything. Someone asked, how do we join UTGA? They're located in Kamocha. An easy thing you can do is to just Google UTGA Uganda, and you'll see their contacts. You can also reach out to me through the contacts that I shared, and I can send you their phone number. But yeah, use their good resource because they have collective experience from many farmers, so they can really support you in this journey. Over to you, Ronnie.
So I think we will have just another round. There are a couple more which have come through. Can the payments be made in installments? That's a question which has come through. I imagine the bit there is those people who want to join. I know you mentioned that it's 35 million for 5 acres, but can I make payments in installments? Daniel says, thank you, Jaffar, for your presentation, very enlightening. Can you comment on other potential revenue streams for forestry, like carbon credits? How have you tried them, and do you know who has, and how do you set them up? That's a question from Daniel. Daniel, thank you for that question. Thank you from Harriet. Madina says, thank you for your presentation and your enthusiasm. Please provide us with the cost estimates if we work with you, as well as the return on the investment for 1 acre. I think, so if I do the 35 million for a 5 acre piece, how does that play out over time, and what kind of return would I expect? And then Birunji says, yes, Birunji was talking about the soil which is going bad, and now a lot of thank yous here. Henry is saying thank you, great presentation, Jaffar. How do we stamp? How are stamps dealt with if the land is to be repurposed? Yes, how do you deal with stamps? I mean, when you cut the trees, stamps remain. How do we deal with that? Pade is saying thank you for sharing, very enlightening and practical presentation. Hamis seems to have missed your contact. Hamis, I'm going to ask Derek to just repost. Derek, you can just help me repost Jaffar's contact. I think Hamis missed it. Great insights, Jaffar. That's from Monica. Monica, how are you? Glad to have you here. Jaffar, I think you could deal with those. I don't see any hands. If there are any hands, please do put them up. We'll give you an opportunity to speak. But Jaffar, I think you can take that bundle and then we can wrap it up.
Okay, thank you, Ronnie. So yeah, indeed, our customers pay in installments. We've tended to give, I think 6 months, 12 months. We've been flexible with this because, I mean, with that price includes planting and maintenance of the trees for 6 months. So yeah, so that allows us to have a person just work out that first phase of paying off the land with time, and then we don't plant until, let's say, about a year later, you know, so that enables us to spread out the costs. Please reach out to me directly. Other revenue streams for forestry. So yes, indeed, one of the things we're exploring is carbon credits. But we had to first, you know, when you're setting up a business, we had to first deal with the initial production, you know, so working out the initial bottlenecks of the road network, getting the right forest management model that took time to develop, of how do we really minimize the costs of maintaining the plantations. And with time, now we have more experience for being able to continuously suppress those costs. So now, like I mentioned, I've now moved into the sales aspect, starting off with Amaya Wood, where I'm reaching out to the market and selling firewood, poles, and timber that we're generating, not just from our plantation, but also I'm actually reaching out to the neighboring farmers as well. Again, collaborating with them, because some of them have mature trees. So for me, when we go out to sell, we are getting orders of mature trees. Well, the bulk of what I'm producing from my own plantation is mostly firewood and just thinnings. So I guess I'm collaborating with farmers in the area to be able to supply wood to the end market. But then with time, then we want to also explore the carbon credit sphere, which is, you know, a viable opportunity as well. The cost estimates or returns per acre, like we've discussed before, that depends on your scale of production. So people who want to look at our draft figures for Amaya can reach out to me directly, and I can share those with you. What I've found with time, with the way forestry is, it's an agricultural product, first of all. So one, I believe it helps if you have a long-term perspective. It has many risks by the nature of it, again, because it's agricultural. So for me, how I look at it in terms of return, and why for me I didn't go for the model of leasing land from NFN, I prefer to own, is the primary thing you have at the end of the day is the land. You own the land and it's appreciating. So now when you have land, like I alluded before to the person who gets a smaller plot in town, but you're not doing rentals or building on it and it's just there. So a person, let's say, who plants trees on that land and have the land appreciate and the trees grow as well and give you more value, comes out positive. So from a big picture macro perspective, think about the numbers or the benefit that way. Now the costs end up being, how can you just along the way keep on suppressing those costs? And we've discussed that through collaboration. Through collaboration and economies of scale, you're able to drop your maintenance costs. Eucalyptus grows quite fast. So within about 2 years, you should have the costs really suppressed. Pine, you have to fight with it a bit longer, maybe like 4 to 5 years until it has grown and it has canopied, and then you do less weed management. But yeah, I can share the figures in Excel with people who reach out to the kind of the numbers we have looked at. And also remember, let's say if you plant a tree now, let's say pine, and you're looking at about 18 years, then again, when you're doing these cost and revenue estimates, really, to what extent can you accurately predict what the sales price will be 18 years from now? I don't know if that makes sense. So for me, what I would tell you is don't look at forestry as a get-rich-quick scheme. It is not. You will burn your fingers. Think about it as a platform whereby you're optimizing your land. You have your land, and instead of letting your land be taken over by squatters or other people, you're putting there a crop which is going to grow and definitely give you more value. So along the way, just how do you minimize your costs? And then also, when the tree has finally grown, how do you cut out the middleman? I think that's what we are addressing. How do you collaborate with other farmers to cut out the middleman, to have your own yard, so that your own wood yard, to have your own source of way of supplying directly to the market. That way you can get the optimal revenue. And then also thinking beyond that, a bigger sphere is, how do you think really big picture, like the current farmers are being told, to come together in your clusters and invest in that drying equipment called kilns. That way you can make your wood export grade. That way you can have furniture made out of your wood. I wish I'd shared pictures of furniture I've seen, also what those kilns look like, But yeah, it's quite amazing. But that you can only do when you pool resources. I mean, people are pulling resources in investment clubs, in circles. It's quite possible to pool money to make these things happen. How are stumps dealt with? I mean, I know with eucalyptus, if you want to regrow, the moment you cut it, it just regrows. So it helps you do an additional productive cycle. But then if it's pine, I mean, another species like Mosizi or whatever, I guess you can get laborers, get laborers, and they either do it manually or you can hire, heavy equipment, those graders or tractors to uproot the trees from the land. So yeah, I believe I've answered all those questions. Back to you, Ronnie.
Thank you so much, Jaffar. Exciting stuff. I think there was a final question there, whether I get a title for the 5 acres. I think the answer is yes. You can just confirm that.
Yes, that is the case. But what I must note though is these 2 square miles are sold out. So for people who are interested in buying, what we'll be doing is putting you in a waiting list for the next project. But yeah, our current stock is sold out. I didn't come today to do active sales. I was just more sharing my experience. But for those interested, you can get onto our waiting list for when we open up more land. Which hopefully will be maybe later this year.
Well, there you have it. I think for those of us who are excited to be part of this, one of the most challenging things to get in this country is a real passive investment. They are not very passive. So I think this allows to make sure you're partnering in forestry with experts who can be able to guide you on the journey, but also allow you to be able to get a good return on your investment. Jaffar, thank you so much for your time. We're very honored that you have shared with us today. It's such an exciting possibility. I believe for many of us, we possibly didn't even know this is happening in Uganda. So Jaffar, thank you for being a pioneer to transform an industry which I think has been, by and large, run in a very informal nature, but also making it possible for someone who may not have big resources to participate in such a capital-intensive investment. Susan is saying, thank you, Jaffar. Pade says, best presentation I've listened to recently. Thank you so much for the realistic way you have shared. Thank you, Pade. Emmanuel is saying, thank you. Another thank you from Martin Matovu. A big thank you to you for the time you have shared with us. Do send our greetings to the Amaya Wood family and the broader Synergy family. Thank them for the work which they are doing, and we celebrate you and the work which you're doing. We're very honored that you're here. We should wrap up in the next couple of minutes. I'm going to ask my colleague Noah. He has a message which he wants to share with an opportunity which is coming up, and then we will be able to wrap up the day. Noah, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ronald. I also appreciate Jaffar for the exciting presentation. We have really benefited a lot. Yes, I'm just sharing some information that Enterprise Uganda, in partnership with Uganda Breweries Limited, we are running a Uganda Learning for Life program for the young people, the youth. This may not be, and may not consider most of the people on this platform, but we believe through your networks, you have the young people, 18 years, 35 years, who can benefit from this program. So together with our partners, we are offering business training, but more so focused on hospitality skills. So we need young people who are out of school or who have dropped out of tertiary institutions or have finished those institutions, but they are not yet employed, but they have interest in the hospitality sector. So they can register with us at Enterprise Uganda. My colleague Derek will be sharing the link where the form can be accessed. And indeed, Derek has just shared it. So the benefits are that the youth will be provided with work readiness and life skills that will help them to make a transition from the state where they are to having a more meaningful life. We shall also provide technical skills relevant to the hospitality sector. We require at least the participants to be 50% women, but also there is very great consideration for those persons with disabilities. So the training will be conducted in Kampala at Silver Springs Hotel of Golobi. UBL is basically focusing on youth around Kampala only. So please just take note of that. We can share with you additional information just in case. So thank you. Over to Ronald.
Thank you. A big thank you, Noah, for that message. If you have a young person who can benefit from this, please do reach out to them. And a big thank you, everyone who has joined us today. Jaffar, thank you so much for sharing your heart with us. And thank you for the work you're doing to build the nation, to transform business. We're very proud of the work which has been done by Amaya and the broader Synergy family. A big thank you, everyone who has joined us today. We are very honored that that you're here, and we will be back next week with another conversation Thursday, right at this time. Those of you who missed a bit of the conversation, a recording will be shared with you, and also a presentation will be shared. We have your details, so that will be shared. So if you know a friend who should have been here but they didn't they didn't manage to participate, please share the recording with them so that they can be able to benefit. We hope we'll see many of you on 9th of June for the open day. Jaffar has shared with us that one is coming up. Just go out there and take a look and have a nice walking around the fresh air in a big forest, but also see what people can be able to do together. Thank you so much and have a blessed time.